A young woman's body is discovered near a peaceful greenway. No weapon, no witnesses, no camera footage, and no clear answers. Her name was Jamani Parker, just 22 years old, a college student with aspirations, goals, and a family who expected her to come home. But instead, she was found dead from a single gunshot wound to the head along a trail near Alta Lake Greenway at Percy Priest Dam in Nashville. The time was early morning. The silence was unsettling, and the scene showed no signs of a robbery, assault, or struggle. The man now accused of her murder is Lavelle Winton Jones, a 35-year-old convicted felon who was already on probation at the time of the killing. Their relationship wasn't public. It was hidden, complex, and off the radar of most who knew Jamani. But when she turned up dead, authorities traced connections and digital footprints. Now, Winton Jones has been indicted for first-degree murder, but key pieces of the puzzle are still missing. The murder weapon has not been recovered. No direct witnesses have come forward. And so far, police have remained tight-lipped about what truly happened that morning. Was this a calculated killing? Was it spontaneous? Or was someone else involved?
Police have made an arrest in last July's murder on the Alta Lake Greenway. Lavelle Winton Jones is accused of shooting and killing his girlfriend, Jamani Parker. A U.S. Army Corps of Engineers employee found Parker unresponsive on July 14th. She died at the hospital. Winton Jones has been in jail since July 26 for several unrelated charges, including drug possession and evading arrest.
Somebody get me live, somebody just get them going up, send me a picture. I want these letters cut at the same time now. Let her have it, y'all ready? In honor of Jamani Parker. Jamani, we love you. We love you. We're gonna miss you dearly. I want you to rest in paradise. Tell your sister, your daddy, your granddaddy, everybody. Jesus, I'm coming. It's my turn. But make sure continue to watch over us. Every last soul here in this park and the ones that ain't here, please continue to watch over. Jamani, we love you.
We love you. We love you, Manny.
This case is now moving through the courts, but the evidence or lack thereof raises more questions than answers. How does a college student wind up dead in a remote area with nothing left behind but silence? And how far will investigators go to prove what really happened? Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover the truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Jamani Parker was 20 years old at the time of her death. She was a student enrolled at a Nashville-based college, actively working toward her degree. Her academic life was steady. Professors and classmates describe her as focused and consistent. She was neither failing classes nor skipping school. In fact, she had recently attended a required campus group meeting the day before her death. Jamani lived off campus, in a small apartment not far from the Greenway, where her body was later discovered. Her lifestyle appeared stable. She wasn't involved in any documented disputes, disciplinary cases, or altercations. She had no criminal record. Police later confirmed she had no restraining orders, arrest warrants, or active cases pending under her name. Family described her as private and calm. She stayed in regular contact with her relatives and was not known to withhold communication. According to statements made after her death, no family members were aware of any danger she might have been facing. They reported that she did not mention anyone following her, threatening her, or causing her emotional distress. Her personality was introverted. She had a small circle of friends. Those who knew her said she kept to herself and rarely brought attention to her personal life. Her social media footprint was minimal. She posted occasionally but had no public arguments, political debates, or controversial activity online. No romantic partner was publicly identified. No recent photos suggested she was in a relationship. In the days leading up to her death, Jamani's emotional state appeared consistent. According to her roommate, there were no sudden changes in behavior. She had not mentioned any breakups, fights, or conflicts. She had not withdrawn or become overly reactive. She maintained her daily routine, going to classes, attending meetings, and texting friends. On the evening before her death, she was last seen by a classmate, leaving campus shortly before nightfall. She texted 2 friends later that night. Nothing in those messages suggested alarm or urgency. Her body would be found the next morning. Why was Jamani at the Greenway that morning? Was she trying to meet someone secretly? What was she keeping to herself? The city where Jamani was murdered, Nashville, Tennessee, has experienced a consistent rise in gun violence over the past several years. According to local statistics, Nashville has recorded over 100 homicides annually for 4 consecutive years. A majority of these killings involve firearms. Victims are frequently under the age of 30. In 2023 alone, the number of shooting deaths involving people between the ages of 18 and 25 increased compared to the year before. Gunfire is no longer restricted to traditionally high-crime neighborhoods. Public locations such as parks, apartment complexes, and recreational areas are increasingly becoming scenes of violent crime. The Alta Lake Greenway, where Jamani was found, was not previously known for crime. However, her death added it to a growing list of public places now associated with gun-related homicides. Gun violence involving intimate or private relationships has also shown a measurable rise. A growing percentage of female victims were killed by men they knew personally, often boyfriends, former partners, or acquaintances. In many of these cases, the suspect was already under court supervision, such as probation or parole. This brings attention to another issue: probation failures. Many violent crimes are now being linked to individuals who were supposed to be under active supervision. However, with high caseloads and limited staff, probation officers are reportedly struggling to enforce court-ordered restrictions. Some offenders are skipping mandatory check-ins. Others are violating location restrictions without consequences. In Jamani's case, the man later indicted for her murder was reportedly on probation at the time she was killed. If correct, this places a case squarely within a larger systemic breakdown, where people with prior convictions are not being adequately monitored. Several incidents in 2024 alone remain unsolved. Many involve young victims shot in residential zones or open areas, with little to no evidence left behind. Families have begun demanding answers. Protests have formed in different parts of the city, calling for increased action on youth gun deaths, faster arrests, and transparency in investigations. Alongside statistics and headlines is a less visible but growing fear. Many residents now avoid certain areas, even during the daytime. Recreational trails, apartment parking lots, and abandoned buildings are increasingly considered high-risk areas. The rise in violence has led to declining public trust in law enforcement. Citizens are reporting fewer tips. Witnesses are becoming reluctant, and cases like Jamani's are turning cold more quickly than before. How does a student end up murdered in public during broad daylight with no witnesses? Are repeat offenders being monitored properly? How many others have died the same way, quietly and without answers? Jamani's case is more than an isolated homicide. It is part of a visible trend across Nashville and similar cities, with a combination of intimate partner violence, firearm access, and probation failures create a recurring outcome. Young victims, often women, found dead with limited answers and few leads. This pattern continues despite public protests and policy discussions. The questions left behind in Jamani's case mirror those from other families across the city. Without clear answers, her story becomes one of many, linked not just by tragedy, but by the ongoing question of why these murders keep happening, and what, if anything, is being done to stop them. On July 14, 2024, a jogger using the Alta Lake Greenway, located near the Percy Priest Dam in Nashville, made a chilling discovery. While jogging along the wooded trail at approximately 6:30 a.m., they noticed what appeared to be a human body lying motionless off the side of the path, partially concealed by overgrown vegetation. The jogger called 911. Emergency personnel responded within minutes. The scene was quickly secured by law enforcement. On closer inspection, the body was identified as Jamani Parker, a 20-year-old local college student. She was lying face down, and a single gunshot wound to the back of the head was immediately visible. There were no signs of struggle, no visible bruising, and no signs of defensive wounds. Her body positioning and lack of disturbance to the surrounding area suggested she was either unaware of her attacker or caught off guard. Near her body, officers located her cell phone, which appeared to be undamaged. However, no purse, backpack, or any other personal items were found at the scene. There was no sign of robbery, and no valuables seemed to be missing. Officers also noted the absence of shell casings and visible footprints, likely due to grassy terrain and time elapsed since the incident. Initial assessments by forensic personnel placed the time of death between 3:30 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., roughly 2 to 3 hours prior to discovery. Temperature conditions and body stiffness supported this estimate. The early hour, combined with the remote nature of the greenway, meant no immediate witnesses had been present during the fatal event. Law enforcement response was swift. The area was cordoned off with crime scene tape. Detectives from the Homicide Division began canvassing the area, speaking with nearby residents, trail users, and utility workers. However, no one reported seeing or hearing anything unusual. No nearby businesses had exterior surveillance cameras pointed toward the trail. Trail camera coverage was non-existent. This left investigators with a murder scene devoid of eyewitnesses, weapon, or video documentation. Why was Jamani out there so early in the morning? Did she go to that location voluntarily, or was she coerced? Why did anyone hear a gunshot in what should have been a quiet, open area? With limited information from the physical crime scene, detectives turned their attention to Jamani's digital footprint, starting with the cell phone found near her body. The device was unlocked and operable. Upon accessing her call and message logs, investigators noted that her final communications had been with Lavelle Winton Jones, a 35-year-old man with a felony record who was on probation at the time of the murder. Text messages between Jamani and Winton Jones indicated that the two had been in ongoing contact and that they had agreed to meet in person early that morning. The most recent exchange took place shortly after 3 a.m., with Winton Jones allegedly asking her to meet him briefly near the trail. There was no explanation in the text for the purpose of the meeting. Further investigation revealed that multiple text messages had been deleted from the conversation thread. However, using digital forensics tools, the deleted texts were successfully retrieved. These messages contained emotionally charged language, suggesting a breakdown in the relationship. Some messages implied a recent argument, and others hinted that Jamani may have been considering ending the relationship. The tone of the communication showed rising tension. Phrases like, "You said you'd be calm," and "this needs to end soon," appear in the restored messages. One message from Jamani read, "I just want to talk and leave. That's all." The pattern in the conversation suggested that the meeting may have been Jamani's attempt to end contact with Winton Jones. Detectives expanded their investigation to examine location data from both parties. Cell tower pings from Winton Jones's device showed his phone near Alta Lake Greenway at approximately 3:45 a.m., less than 30 minutes before Jamani's estimated time of death. After 4 a.m., his phone's signal went inactive for several hours, suggesting he either powered it off or placed on airplane mode. Following the presumed time of the murder, there were no outgoing text calls or location updates from Jamani's device. Winton Jones made no attempt to contact her, her family, or police. There were no calls placed to emergency services, no message expressing concern, and no public acknowledgement of her death on his part. Further scrutiny of his behavior revealed that Winton Jones did not attend Jamani's funeral. He also deleted or deactivated his social media accounts shortly after news of her death became public. These actions raised additional concerns among investigators. Authorities confronted Winton Jones during a formal interview. He denied meeting Jamani that morning, claiming he had been asleep at home. However, he failed to provide a verifiable alibi or supporting witnesses. The conflict between his statements and the GPS data, combined with a suspicious message history and his abrupt silence after her death, placed him under intensified suspicion. Despite these findings, there were still major investigative hurdles. The murder weapon was never recovered. No forensic evidence, DNA, fingerprints, linked Winton Jones to the scene. No eyewitnesses could confirm seeing them together that morning. As a result, the prosecution built a case based primarily on digital evidence, motive, and inconsistencies in the suspect's statements. In September 2024, a grand jury indicted Winton Jones for first-degree murder. He was arrested and held without bond. His legal team continues to dispute the charge, citing the lack of physical evidence. The case is currently pending trial. Why did Jamani agree to meet in a remote location before dawn? Was she attempting to leave a relationship that had turned controlling? Did the suspect plan the encounter to avoid public detection? The primary suspect in the death of 20-year-old Jamani Parker is Lavelle Winton Jones, a 35-year-old man with documented criminal past. His name first emerged during the digital analysis of Jamani's phone records. Text message logs and GPS metadata from her device indicated direct communication and physical proximity between the two in the hours leading up to her death. Winton Jones's background immediately raised concerns for investigators. He has multiple felony convictions, which span several years. His previous charges include assault, illegal firearm possession, and probation violations. At the time of Jamani's murder in July 2024, he was actively serving a probation sentence, making his presence at the crime scene both legally questionable and personally suspicious. His employment status is not clearly established. Public records do not list any stable or ongoing form of work. According to investigators, he may have been involved in intermittent labor, including unregistered construction gigs or private delivery work. No employer has stepped forward to confirm his whereabouts on the night in question. Following Jamani's death, Winton Jones exhibited behavior that law enforcement labeled as suspicious. He deactivated or deleted his social media accounts shortly after the murder occurred. He also failed to complete his mandatory probation check-in, which was scheduled less than 48 hours after her body was discovered. His absence prompted additional review by both probation officers and homicide detectives. When police formally interviewed him, Winton Jones denied any contact with Jamani that evening. He claimed they had ended communication weeks prior. However, GPS data from his phone placed him near the Alta Lake Greenway, within a close window of the estimated time of Jamani's death. His alibi conflicted with both his device history and phone records, undermining his initial statements. Despite denying involvement, he was indicted by a grand jury in September 2024 for first-degree murder. He was taken into custody and is currently being held while awaiting trial. Court documents suggest that prosecutors are building their case around his digital footprint, the timing of his movements, and his inconsistent statements to law enforcement. Was Jamani's death part of a pattern in his past? Did probation officers overlook red flags that could have prevented this? Could earlier intervention have stopped this from happening? Despite identifying a suspect and securing an indictment, the investigation into Jamani Parker's murder faces several critical limitations. The most significant challenge is the absence of physical evidence. No fingerprints have been found linking Winton Jones to the crime scene. There is no murder weapon recovered. There is also no forensic material, such as blood, hair, or DNA, on Jamani's body that can directly connect the suspect to the killing. The murder occurred in an open, public space, Alta Lake Greenway, near the Percy Priest Dam. The location has no public lighting, no city-installed surveillance cameras, and limited traffic during early morning hours. This resulted in a situation where no eyewitnesses were present. No one reported hearing a gunshot. No one saw any suspicious activity. Furthermore, no vehicles were seen entering or leaving the nearby roadways during the time frame of the crime. Due to the complete lack of physical evidence, detectives have been forced to rely on circumstantial and digital data to build their case. This includes GPS records from both the victim and the suspect phones, message logs recovered from deleted texts, cell tower pings that verify proximity, alibi contradictions exposed during questioning, behavioral red flags, such as account deletion and missed appointments. While these forms of evidence can be compelling, they do not prove direct involvement. They suggest opportunity and motive, but not physical action. This opens the door for defense arguments that someone else could have committed the crime, or that the meeting never occurred as alleged. There are also surveillance limitations. Investigators reviewed nearby commercial cameras, but no footage shows Jamani or Winton Jones together. Trail cameras, if any were installed in the area, were either malfunctioning or not present at all. Businesses along adjacent streets reported no suspicious vehicles, and there are no toll or highway records tying a specific car to the area. The weapon remains missing. No firearm has been recovered. Without a weapon, forensic matching through ballistics or fingerprints is impossible. This leaves the timeline and relationship as the key points of the prosecution's case. The prosecution is moving forward with the indictment based on the strength of the digital narrative. The idea that Winton Jones had motive means an opportunity. They argue that the lack of cooperation, deletion of data, and inconsistent behavior are signs of guilt. The defense is expected to counter by arguing that circumstantial evidence is insufficient and that absence of physical proof makes it impossible to rule out other suspects. Can digital evidence alone result in a murder conviction? Without the gun, is there reasonable doubt? Could another party have used Jamani's phone to set up the meeting? Is it possible that someone else knew her routine and exploited it? This portion of the case highlights the difficulty of securing a conviction when evidence is mostly circumstantial. While the suspect has been charged and jailed, the legal outcome will depend on how the court interprets indirect indicators like phone records and behavioral inconsistencies. If the case moves to trial without any new evidence, such as a murder weapon or a witness, then the prosecution will face the challenge of proving intent and execution beyond a reasonable doubt, using only digital trails and circumstantial timelines. Following the public identification of Jamani Parker as the victim in a fatal shooting near Alta Lake Greenway, her family issued a public statement demanding justice. In their statement, they emphasized that Jamani had no known enemies, was not involved in criminal activity, and lived a private life focused on school and family. The family also confirmed that they were unaware of her secret relationship with a man now indicted for her murder, Lavelle Winton Jones. They stated that Jamani had never disclosed any personal involvement with him or expressed fear, concern, or distress about any romantic relationship. This revelation came as a shock to both relatives and community members, as it contradicted the quiet and reserved lifestyle she was known for. According to her family, Jamani was cautious about the people she allowed into her life. The nature of her relationship with Winton Jones and the secrecy surrounding it has raised more questions than answers. As details of the indictment became public, several local community groups and residents reacted strongly, pointing to her death as another example of a larger, ongoing crisis in Nashville. At least 3 public protests took place in the weeks after her murder was announced. Protesters demanded reforms in how probation cases are managed and criticized local officials for repeated failure to prevent violent offenders from reoffending while under supervision. Local residents and organizers also pointed to a disturbing rise in youth gun deaths, particularly among women under the age of 25. Jamani's case was cited as a textbook example of how some victims fall through the cracks of public awareness, often because their situations appear non-threatening until they aren't. One immediate and visible reaction from the community was a sharp decline in visitation to the Alta Lake Greenway, the same location where her body was found. Previously known as a safe and scenic recreational space, the Greenway quickly became associated with danger, particularly for young women walking alone. Local fitness groups canceled scheduled meetups, and several joggers publicly announced on social media that they would no longer use a trail without a group. This shift in public behavior demonstrates how Jamani's death not only impacted her family and social circle, but also altered community perceptions of safety in shared spaces. The tragedy served as a turning point for public discourse around gender violence, the invisibility of dangerous relationships, and access to guns by individuals with criminal records. On social media, the hashtag #JusticeForJamani began to trend regionally. The movement was initially started by students from her college campus, but soon spread beyond that circle. Posts included photos, digital memorials, and calls for policy change. The hashtag also led to the creation of a temporary memorial near the crime scene, where people left flowers, candles, and written messages. Several advocacy organizations, including those focused on domestic violence prevention and victims' rights, began citing Jamani's case in their outreach materials. One advocacy group issued a statement drawing attention to the pattern of fatal domestic violence involving women who had no prior history of public abuse. According to them, many cases like Jamani's begin in private and end in silence, with victims never reporting their partners due to fear, embarrassment, or belief that things will improve. They also raised concerns about the effectiveness of probation enforcement. In their view, a person with Winton Jones's background, already on probation, should not have been able to maintain a secret relationship that ultimately led to a fatal encounter. How many more cases like this are happening unnoticed because victims don't feel safe disclosing their relationships? What concrete steps are being taken to protect women from private threats that don't appear dangerous on the surface? As of now, the case against Lavelle Winton Jones is in the pretrial phase. After being indicted for first-degree murder in September 2024, he was taken into custody and has been held without bond. Prosecutors have confirmed that they expect a full trial to begin within the next year, though an exact date has not yet been announced. The legal proceedings have already drawn significant attention due to the unusual lack of physical evidence. Investigators have not recovered the murder weapon. No fingerprints, hair, or bodily fluids were found at the scene that directly tie Winton Jones to the murder. Additionally, no eyewitnesses came forward, and no nearby surveillance footage captured the actual crime. Despite this, prosecutors believe they have enough evidence to move forward. Their case is built around a circumstantial timeline supported by digital records. Text message logs between Jamani and Winton Jones in the hours leading up to the murder. GPS location data placing him near the crime scene at the estimated time of death. Probation check-in failures that raise questions about his whereabouts during that period. Deleted messages and social media activities shortly after Jamani's death. According to the prosecution, these data points collectively establish motive, opportunity, and an attempt to conceal involvement. They are arguing that the relationship between the two had grown tense and that the meeting arranged in the early morning hours of July 14, 2024, was not innocent. They further claim that Winton Jones had both the intent and the opportunity to commit the murder and took calculated steps afterward to hide his connection. On the other hand, the defense maintains that there is insufficient proof tying their client to the crime. They argue that being in proximity to a public area and exchanging messages does not equate to guilt. They have challenged the GPS data, suggesting that it may not be precise enough to determine exact location. The defense is also expected to argue that the absence of a weapon, forensic evidence, or witnesses creates reasonable doubt. Legal analysts following the case note that it could become a defining moment in how courts weigh digital evidence in homicide trials. If a conviction is secured based solely on circumstantial and electronic records, it may set a precedent for similar future cases where hard evidence is missing. At present, both the prosecution and defense are in the discovery phase, exchanging records, building timelines, and preparing for pre-trial motions. No plea deals have been announced. Winton Jones continues to maintain his innocence. Should someone be convicted of murder without a murder weapon or forensic evidence? In a digital world, does the absence of physical proof mean justice can't be served? Are courts prepared to base life sentences on phone records and location pings? If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.